Imagine you are at the bustling railway station in Mumbai during peak hour. You have a platform ticket, you know your destination, and the train is supposed to be fast. But you spend 2 hours just waiting in a queue to buy the ticket, another 30 minutes walking through a congested platform, and then you sit on the train for an hour while it waits for a signal. You spent nearly 4 hours, but only 1 hour was spent actually moving towards your destination. In your office, your projects are the same. We call this value stream mapping. Formally, it is a lean management method for analyzing the current state and designing a future state for the series of events that take a product or service from its beginning to the customer. In simple words, it is a way to stop and look at your work process to see where it is actually moving forward and where it is just sitting around collecting dust. We often think we are busy, but being busy is not the same as being productive. You have probably seen this at the office, where a report goes from your desk to your manager's desk, then sits in an inbox for 3 days, then goes to a department head who then sends it back for a minor edit. That waiting time is a waste. So, now that we have mastered the core realization that most of our work time is actually spent waiting, you might be wondering how we can visualize this invisible waste to actually fix it. Well, that brings us right into our next step, which is the anatomy of a value stream map. To understand this, let's go back to our railway station journey. If you were to draw a map of that trip, you wouldn't just draw the train. You would draw the ticket window, the security line, the platform walk, the waiting for signal time, and the actual transit time. A value stream map is exactly that, a visual diagram that tracks both the flow of materials or information and the time it takes to move through each step. When we draw this for a business process, we use simple boxes for the steps and triangles to represent the waiting time. Those little pockets where work just sits in an inbox or on a server doing nothing. It is a real eye-opener. I once worked with a team that swore they were overworked, but when we mapped their process, we realized the actual doing part of their job took only 10% of the total time. The other 90% was spent waiting for approvals or emails to be opened. By putting it on paper, the waste becomes impossible to ignore. It stops being an abstract feeling and starts being a measurable reality. So, now that we've mastered the art of drawing our current reality, you might be wondering how to identify which of those waiting periods are the most damaging to our project. Well, that brings us right into our next step, which is identifying the 8 types of waste. In any process, there are 8 specific thieves that steal your time. We call these the types of waste. They include things like overproduction, making more than what is needed right now, and waiting, the time when someone is idle because they are waiting for a resource. There is also the waste of motion, like having to walk across the office 3 times to find a file, and the waste of defects, like when you have to redo a piece of work because of an error. You've probably seen this at the office. You spend all day perfecting a massive spreadsheet that nobody actually asked for. That is overproduction. Or you start a project, realize the instructions were wrong, and have to go back to the beginning. That is the waste of rework. When we map our process, we label every single step with one of these types of waste. By giving them names, we can have a productive conversation about how to eliminate them. We aren't blaming people. We are blaming the process. It turns a potentially difficult conversation into a collaborative puzzle-solving session. So, now that we've mastered the 8 ways that time and value are stolen from our team, you might be wondering how to transform this messy current state into a sleek, efficient future. Well, that brings us right into our next step, which is designing the future state map. Now that we have our map of the current disaster, we don't just stare at it and complain. We create a future state map. This is a design of how the process should look if we remove the waste. Think of it like renovating an old cramped house. You don't just keep living in the dark, narrow hallway. You knock down the wall, create an open floor plan, and let the light in. In our process map, we ask, what if we eliminated this approval step? What if we automated this data transfer so nobody has to type it manually? What if we moved these 2 team members to sit next to each other so they can talk instead of emailing? The future state map is your blueprint for change. It is not about changing everything overnight. It is about knowing exactly which walls to knock down first. You set a target, you quantify how much time you expect to save, and you create a clear vision for the team to rally around. It changes the conversation from "we are so overwhelmed" to "here is how we are going to reclaim our day." So now that we've mastered the vision of a streamlined future, you might be wondering how we handle the human side of this. Because change can be difficult for people. Well, that brings us right into our next step, which is balancing efficiency with team well-being. This is where I need you to stay with me here. Efficiency is not about making people work faster like robots on an assembly line. That is a dangerous mistake. In a professional environment, if you squeeze a team to be 100% efficient every second, they will eventually burn out and quit. True flow is about removing the friction, not cranking up the pressure. When we look at our value stream map, we want to remove the parts of the job that are annoying, repetitive, or soul crushing. That is actually an act of kindness. By automating that boring data entry, you are giving your team member back an hour of their day to do creative, interesting work. That is why we map the process, to make the work easier for the humans involved. When people feel that their time is respected and that they aren't spending their day fighting a broken process, their morale skyrockets. Happy people deliver better value than tired, frustrated people every single time. So now that we have mastered how to optimize our processes while respecting the people who do the work, you might be wondering how we maintain this flow over the long term without slipping back into old habits. Well, that brings us right into our next step, which is the practice of continuous improvement. We have talked about mapping the current state, identifying waste, and designing the future. But the most important thing to remember is that a value stream map is a living document. You don't do it once and put it in a drawer. You come back to it. You look at it every month or every quarter and ask, are we still as fast as we thought? Have new bottlenecks appeared? This is the essence of continuous improvement. It is a mindset that says, we are good today, but we will be better tomorrow. You have seen the entire journey now, from the invisible traffic jams in your office to the strategic design of a cleaner workflow. Value stream mapping is the ultimate tool for a disciplined agile practitioner because it forces you to stop and look at the system rather than just the tasks. You now have the power to see the waste, name it, and systematically remove it, allowing your team to spend more of their time doing what they do best, creating real, lasting value for the customer.